this lesson, you will learn about two legal methods for describing land in the United States: Mets and Bounds and the rectangular survey system. The recorded plat is an offshoot of both the other systems and will be talked about briefly. As we work through the lesson, mathematics or important terms which are essential for understanding will be defined and described. In addition, you will be given opportunities to practice what you've learned in the lesson. Because it is important for understanding the material presented in this lesson, let's start with a very short history lesson. Let's go back to when colonists first came to and settled in what we now call the original 13 colonies. As people came to the New World, they declared parcels of land as their own. It wasn't long before expansion occurred in Kentucky, Tennessee, parts of Ohio, Maine, and Vermont as well. Ownership was either land granted by the kings of Europe or simply claimed by squatting. Surveyors were hired to define and record land boundaries often described by some geographic phenomenon, such as a river, stream, mountain, or even configuration of rocks and trees. There were no rules defining how land was to be assigned, therefore irregular plots were not uncommon. The Mets and Bounds system was born. The Mets and Bounds system is a method of land description that identifies a property by describing the shape and boundary dimensions of a unit of land based on its distances and bearing angles from a defined starting point. Here is an actual deed recorded on June 23, 1949 with the state of New Hampshire. Beginning at an iron pipe on the corner of lots 51 and 52, thence running north 52 degrees 49 minutes east, a distance of 87½ feet. Thence turning and running easterly through the middle of lot 50, a distance of 101 feet, more or less. Thence turning and running south 52 degrees 49 minutes west, a distance of 80 feet, more or less, along a 24-foot right-of-way. Thence turning and running on an arc, a distance of 30 feet to West Shore Drive, so-called. Thence continuing along the northerly side of said West Shore Drive, a distance of 80 feet, more or less, to the point of beginning. Notice the two bounds or bearing angles used in this deed description: north 52 degrees 49 minutes east and south 52 degrees 49 minutes west. We will be creating a rough sketch of the Mets and Bounds description you were just given. But before we do, let's dig deeper into the code of bearing angles. The bearings describe the deviation measured in degrees, minutes, and seconds from a known line or direction. Some examples would be north 25 degrees 35 minutes east, south 22 degrees 35 minutes east, north 15 degrees west, south 45 degrees west. Let's think of this physically. North 25 degrees 35 minutes east means to stand at the origin of a compass and face north. Turn towards the east and draw a line, an angle of 25 degrees 35 minutes. South 22 degrees 35 minutes east, on the other hand, means to stand at the origin and face south. Turn toward the east. Draw a line, an angle of 22 degrees 35 minutes. Think for a second about what north 15 degrees west means before I go on. From the origin, face north. Turn towards the west and draw a boundary line, an angle of 15 degrees. Did you see that image in your head? Try this one on scratch. Try this one on scrap paper, please. Pause the lesson, and when you have completed your sketch, please resume. Here is my sketch. How does yours compare? I am sure you have noticed that I am not using a protractor on any of these sketches. It is the concept I'm after right now, not the exact angle measurements. Now that we understand the basics of bearings, let's create a quick sketch of the property described using the Mets and Bounds method. The description begins, beginning at an iron pipe on the corner of lots 51 and 52. First, place a compass direction on the sketch so the reader knows the direction of north. Then place a symbol to represent the iron pipe. The next part of the property description states, thence running north 52 degrees 49 minutes east, a distance of 87 1/2 feet. Place a pair of north, south, and east-west lines at the beginning point. Draw a line 52 degrees 49 minutes using a suitable scale to represent the distance of 87 1/2 feet. The third part of the description. Thence, turning and running easterly through the middle of lot 50, a distance of 101 feet, more or less. Place the north, south, east, west lines on the end point of the first boundary line. Draw a line to represent the 101 feet boundary line in the easterly direction. Thence turning and running south 52 degrees 49 minutes west, a distance of 80 feet more or less along a 24-foot right-of-way. Place the compass lines, determine the bearing angle, and draw the 80-foot boundary line to scale. Thence, turning and running an arc, a distance of 30 feet to West Shore Drive. Thence continuing along the northerly side of said West Shore Drive, a distance of 80 feet, more or less, to the point of beginning. As you see, creating a sketch of the property which was described using the Mets and Bounds system is nothing more than following a set of step-by-step directions. We have prepared a worksheet with two property descriptions. The first is described using the Mets and Bounds system, as you've just seen, and the other the rectangular survey system, which we will discuss next. Please pause this lesson and download the worksheet. Complete the first sketch while the Mets and Bounds system is still fresh in your mind, or wait until the end of this lesson. The choice is yours. Next, we will talk about the rectangular survey system. After 1776, our founding fathers recognized that the current system of describing land, the Mets and Bounds system, had some distinct disadvantages, especially as new lands were acquired and incorporated due to the Western expansion. First suggested by Thomas Jefferson in 1784, the rectangular survey system was officially adopted by the newly formed United States government for the organization, division, and sale of government-owned frontier lands. It was first used in the Northwest Territories, those lands lying west of Pennsylvania and north of the Ohio and east of the Mississippi rivers. The first steps in implementing this survey system in a given area are establishing and identifying an initial point. This point will be the basis of all governmental surveys in the area it controls. The latitude and the longitude of the point is fixed. The principal meridian line runs north and south through a fixed point, and the base line runs east and west. There are 34 principal meridians in the United States, each with a specific baseline associated with it. Range lines Range lines running north and south are then identified. These range lines are placed 6 miles apart. Similarly, township lines running east and west are placed 6 miles apart. This grid of intersecting lines creates 16 townships, each 6 square miles in size. This unit of land, 24 miles square, forms the basis of the rectangular survey system. Each of the townships are subdivided into 36 parts, each 1 square mile, called a section. The sections are given numbers, starting in the upper right-hand corner, beginning with the number 1, and running west and east alternatively through the township until number 36. Each section contains 1 square mile or 640 acres. The sections are then described in terms of halves, containing 320 acres, quarters, 160 acres, quarter of quarters, etc. Generally, the words eighths or sixteenths are not used. Let's take a closer look at a property description using the rectangular survey system. Township 1 South, Range 1 East, 3rd PM, Section 25, South 1/2, Northwest 1/4. The first part of the description tells us the township. Starting with the unit of land described by the 3rd principal meridian, we identify Township 1 South, Range 1 East. Next, identify the section specified, Section 25. Last, we need to locate the subdivision of the section. South 1/2, Northwest 1/4 means the south half of the northwest quarter, the area you see shaded. There's a second problem on the worksheet we provided to allow you to practice finding a plot of land when described using the rectangular survey system. Press pause and refer to the worksheet. Resume the lesson when you are ready. In many urban areas, you might encounter a different kind of land description which refers to lots and blocks. A developer would create a map known as a master survey plat in which a larger unit or section of land has been subdivided. This map is filed with the local town or city government after each lot has been surveyed using a Metz and Bounds description. A great example of a recorded plat description is included as part of the exercises which make up Activity 1.1, Legal Descriptions, from the CEA curriculum. I'm sure you recognize it now. This brings us to the end of the lesson on legal descriptions of land for the Civil Engineering and Architecture course. Since every tract of land which is purchased in the United States must have a legal description to designate where it is located, it is important that our students be able to understand what is written as part of a deed. You might consider